Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another 80s throwback for a film I don't hear much of these days. No doubt partially because it is really hard to track down, and initially was kind of probably lost in the mix of more popular science-related 1980s comedies with My Science Project from 1985 starring John Stockwell, Fisher Stevens, and Dennis Hopper. The synopsis for this film is as follows. A high school student and his friend find a strange orb-like piece of equipment to use as a science project, but must stop it when it begins to threaten mankind. So, my biggest memories of this film was just how cool this device was, this orb. It's pretty much like this. Little plasma ball, but without a little unicorn on top. Anyways, and not just that it was a plasma ball, but the rest of the device that it is, housed in, and how they kind of get it to work, and also, of course, the humor and, particularly by Fisher Stevens in this film. All those things are what I really remember the most about it. But this one was really hard to track down. DVDs don't appear to be in production anymore, and I've seen them range in price going as high as $60. And the only Blu-ray I was able to find was a non-US version, which I don't even know if it would work over here anyways, and even that one I think was getting up to like 30 or 40 bucks. And streaming? Well, it's simply just not available anywhere currently, at least. Not at the time of this video, not even for paid rental. But luckily I was able to get my hands on a copy, so I could sit down and give it a rewatch. Not a great copy, as the audio was, a bit strange, kind of muffled in some ways. It felt almost like a bad voiceover or something. And the color and clarity was definitely a bit washed out compared to what one would hope with a movie with a lot of visual effects and everything. But, at any rate, needless to say, I still was able to sit down, revisit this one, and it was definitely a lot of fun. John Stockwell comes across as a pretty relatable character, a bit of a motorhead and everything. They set him up very well. And he was also in Christine recently, which I just did a video for at the time of this video. That'll be last week sometime. So I'll link to that one at the end. Anyways, so his character is kind of struggling to get enough credit to graduate high school, particularly in science. And he and a school yearbook / reporter kind of person go out on a little date of sorts as they sneak into a military aircraft graveyard where he plans to just find something that he can maybe clean it up, write a quick paper about it, and pass it off as a science project for his final. And this is where they come across this device, the origin of which they just very briefly kind of touch on at the beginning, like the military finding this spaceship and that they just want to kind of bury it, just pretend they never found it. So while he's trying to figure this thing out with his friend who's played by Fisher Stevens, it turns out to be quite otherworldly, opening up some sort of a time-space portal, and it just wreaks havoc on everything around them, particularly while it's kind of grappling onto the power grid and getting more and more powerful. So now it's up to him and his friends to try to stop this thing and see if they can repair any of the damage that was done. So, though there are a few times in it that are a little bit slow, some quiet stretches, and particularly, in the beginning of the film kind of leading up to everything, and of course the effects are a little bit dated, what really sells this film, I feel like, is the idea. This little MacGuffin of theirs, this machine, the look of it, the idea of where it came from and what it's doing, and especially it's that comedy that really makes this film work for me from Fisher Stevens. So he plays kind of like this almost greaser-inspired kind of character who plays tougher than he actually is. But he's a character with all of the one-liners, all the gags and so on. He livens up every single scene that he's in, and it's even to the point where during the end credits, they feature a lot of additional little quips of his until the final shot of the film is just him waving at the camera. So his comedy definitely brings a lot to it, and of course, the movie's not perfect. Like I said, there's some slow and quiet parts, takes a little bit to get going. Throw in that in 1985, we also had a lot of competition in the science comedy kind of area with Weird Science, which was much more popular, as well as Real Genius, which, seems to be better remembered and has quite the cult following as well. So it's understandable why this one seems to be all but forgotten. And no doubt also because it appears to just not be available in many places, possibly due to a rights issue, but hopefully it gets cleared up somehow. However, if you do have the chance to track down My Science Project, I highly recommend it. Maybe it will eventually get a new physical release, or maybe it'll wind up on a streaming service one day. I think if you give this odd science fiction comedy adventure kind of film from '85 a chance, you'll find that it's more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this quick little video for this little borderline forgotten 80s science-based comedy, My Science Project, which, like I said at the time of this video, is not available anywhere. Hopefully that will change, so keep your eyes open if you're interested in this one. Anyways, that's all I got for this entry. Thanks for coming by and for sticking around to the end, as it really does help out quite a bit, as does liking, subscribing, and sharing. And now stick around just after this because I'm going to have two links coming up, one for Christine, which I just did last week, and one for one of my earliest videos that's kind of along the same lines. It's like an 80s science-based comedy with electric dreams, and I will see you in the next one.